Today we are continuing on with solving inequalities, and we're looking at adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing one-step inequalities. So the first set of problems we're going to look at is just adding and subtracting inequalities. So let's review just solving a one-step equation, first adding or subtracting. So we have x minus 3 equals negative 9. So we're going to get x by itself by doing the opposite. So we're going to add 3 to both sides. We add 3 to both sides. It cancels out the 3's there. So we get x to equal negative 6. So now we're just going to apply this same process to inequalities. So the only thing that changes is we have our lovely inequality symbol. So this symbol here, for remember, is less than or equal to. So we have x minus 3 is less than or equal to negative 9. So the same thing, get x by itself, we're going to do the opposite. Add 3 to both sides. Cancels out, so we get x. We bring down the symbol, less than or equal to negative 6. And then we just graph it just like we did before. So we have a number line, which we do not have drawn. So we're going to draw a number line. We have negative 6 here. Negative 5 would be on the right. And negative 7 would be on the left. Just a little simple number line. So we're at negative 6. We have to determine if we are doing an open or a closed circle at negative 6. It is an equal to, so that is a closed circle. And then we got to determine if our arrow is going to the right or to the left. The inequality symbol is pointed to the left, so we're going to draw it to the left. Then now we just graphed an inequality. So there's 2 steps to it. You have to solve it and then graph it. So let's look at some examples. Our first example, we have x plus 5 is greater than 7. So we have to get x by itself. So we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to subtract 5 from both sides. So when we subtract 5, it cancels out the 5. So we're just left with x is greater than 7 minus 5 is 2. So we start at 2. It's going to be open or closed at 2. It's going to be an open circle at 2. And then our arrow is pointing to the right. And there we go. Now let's look at number 2. We have to get x by itself. So we have negative 3 here. We have to do the opposite. We have to add 3 to both sides. Cancels out, so we get x is by itself. Rewrite our symbol. And then negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5. So, going back to our lesson before, order matters. We have to have our x, our inequality symbol, and then our number. Here we don't have that, so we just have to flip it. So we have x, and negative 5 just gets flip-flopped, and then we look at our inequality symbol. This symbol is, if you think of Pac-Man's mouth, it's eating x, so it still has to eat x. And we still have it as an equal to. So that sign just flips. So we have x that's greater than or equal to -5. Now we have to graph that. So we go down to -5. Is it going to be open or closed? Is it equal to, so it's a closed circle. And then it's pointing to the right. So we draw our line to the right. Let's look at number 3 now. How do we get x by itself? We have to do the opposite, so we have to add 9 to both sides. Cancels out, so we get x. We bring down our inequality symbols, less than. And then -2 plus 9, you can think of it as 9 minus 2, and that is 7. So we go over to 7. Is it open or close? It's going to be an open. Let's use color. And then we are graphing it to the left. That was adding and subtracting. Now let's look at multiplying and dividing. So it's going to be the same concept as we just did with adding and subtracting, except there's one rule we have to think about. When you're multiplying or dividing by a negative number, you must flip the sign. This is very important here. So if it's a greater than, it becomes a less than. If it's a less than, it becomes a greater than. And then if it's equal to, it's always going to continue to be equal to. So let's look at number 1 here. 3x is greater than 21. We divide both sides by 3. Get x to be greater than 21 divided by 3 is 7. So we go over to 7. It's going to be open or closed circle. That's 7. Be an open circle. Are we graphing it to the right or to the left? It's pointing to the right, so our arrow goes to the right. Number 2. We have x divided by 3. To get x by itself, we have to do the opposite, so we're going to multiply both sides by 3. Cancels out here, so we're just left with x is greater than or equal to -2 times 3 is -6. So we go over to -6, and it's going to be a closed circle. We color it in, and it's pointing to the right. Okay, number 3, we got -2x. We gotta get that x by itself. It's multiplication, so we're going to divide by -2. And here we are dividing by a negative, so our very important rule comes into play. So we bring down our x. Our sign, we can't bring it straight down. We have to flip it because we divided by a negative. So 18 divided by -2 is -9. So let's go over to 9. And it's going to be a closed circle pointing to the right. And then the last one. We have x divided by -3. We have a division problem. So to get rid of that, we have to do the opposite. So we have to multiply. So we're multiplying by -3 to both sides. Cancels out here. So we're left with x. We're multiplying by a negative. So that means our sign flips, becomes a greater than or equal to. -1 times -3 is a +3. Remember, negative times a negative is a positive. So we go over to 3, and it is a closed circle. And we are pointing to the right. So we graph it to the right. And then that's how we graph one-step inequality problems. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach on out.